Enjoy.
This place is an oasis for the natural environment that was the original real Florida Keys.
It's the best preserved unit of property in the Middle Keys. It has more than 50 of the 100 and so native species of trees.
By walking around the trails and by going down to the point, just seeing the ocean and looking at the trees and all like the spiders and everything around it, it just makes you appreciate everything that's around you. I guess it's kind of like home away from home.
After you wander in the hammocks here for a while, if you like nature, it's very easy to fall in love with this stuff.
It's not just the natural setting, the hammock, the natural environment, the many ecosystems that we have here, but it's also the story of the people coming through. It's a story of everyone.
Native Americans have lived in the area around Crane Point for thousands of years. They established fishing camps here and created ceremonial art of great beauty. They were attracted to the area by the plentiful fishing and by the presence of freshwater solution holes.
One of the things that makes this hammock a suitable place for human occupation is the abundance of fresh water, especially in the solution holes.
Solution holes form when acidic rainwater dissolves the limestone bedrock. These shallow depressions work like drains to channel and collect the rainwater.
Fresh water is a life-limiting factor for lots of wildlife in the Keys. So an abundance of fresh water is one of the things that makes this site so important to the plants and animals that were here, and to the pioneers that were here, and to the Indians that came before them.
The first permanent human habitation on Crane Point was made by George Adderley and his wife Olivia, who came here from the Bahamas in 1890, cleared the land, and built this house out of tabby, a homemade concrete made of sand, small rocks, and lime. A lay preacher, George held services in his home for many years. Life was hard for these early pioneers.
George Adderley, when he came here, it's very difficult for us nowadays to imagine what it was like. There was no town of Marathon. There was no road, there was no highways, there was no path even leading from the water into his property. This was dense, virgin, tropical hardwood hammock.
George Adderley made his living collecting sponges in the waters off Crane Point. He would later sail to Key West to sell his sponges at auction. Change came quickly to this island in the form of a railroad linking Key West to the mainland. Often called an engineering miracle, the project was spearheaded by Henry Flagler, who rode the inaugural train into Key West on January 22nd, 1912, 7 years after starting the project.
Now I can die happy.
Flagler said.
My dream is fulfilled.
George Adderley traded a right-of-way through his property in exchange for a railroad stop, creating Station Vaga. In 1935, a hurricane struck the Keys, destroying Flagler's dream. The Overseas Highway replaced the railroad, ushering in a new era of tourism and development. Francis and Mary Crane were among those drawn to the area in the late 1940s.
The Cranes were a wealthy Massachusetts couple that came to the Florida Keys and, like many others, learned that our winters are warm, they're sunny, they're frost-free, and the fishing's really good. So they decided to settle here for their winter home. And it was around that time that this property became known as Crane Point.
Early environmentalists and avid bird watchers, the Cranes dedicated themselves to the preservation of the land they had purchased. In 1950, Francis wrote,
"Not until we had macheted thousands of feet of trails did we realize what a priceless purchase we had made. An idea burns ever brighter as we progress deeper into the forest. To preserve against the inroads of advancing civilization this handiwork of nature for all to see."
But all around Crane Point, the hammock was being destroyed to make way for houses and hotels. Crane Point became an island of wilderness in a sea of development. To resist these trends, the Florida Keys Land and Sea Trust was formed in the 1970s. And when Crane Point came up for sale in 1989, the trust, with only $13,000 in the bank, bid $1.2 million for the property. The community rallied in support, and the deal went through.
We're going to learn a little bit about the red and black.
Today, Crane Point serves as a model of conservation and is a place for people of all ages to come and learn. These third graders are on a field trip.
This is a red mangrove. Has a nice light bark. It's got pointy leaves. And if you look down here, everybody can look down. Do you see those things coming out? Those roots? Those arching roots? Anybody heard of the term prop roots?
While the red mangrove has arched prop roots which prop it up, the black mangrove has snorkel roots that supply oxygen. And there's one more difference.
Okay, now let's look at the black mangrove. Tell me if you feel anything gritty on them.
Is that like oil?
Lick your fingers.
It's salt.
It's salty. Who knows what the scientific name is for spiders? Anybody remember? We talked about it last year. It began with an A. It's right. Anybody see anything? Do you see the striped fish? Oh, there's the parrotfish. That's a big one.
Today, the children have learned about mangroves, about spiders, and about fish. But perhaps the most important thing they're learning is how to love the natural world.
It's cool. People should go here, Mom. Yeah. Because it's really beautiful. A whole other world.
There is much to explore at Crane Point. The Natural History Museum, where you can learn about the animals, plants, and history of the Florida Keys. The Cracker House, with a changing creature feature. The Butterfly Meadow, where you can see many species of butterflies. The Adderley House, a visit back to the beginning of the 20th century. The Marathon Wild Bird Center, where injured or sick birds are rehabilitated and often released back into the wild. The Crane House, a step into the 1950s. A wide variety of walking trails. And the view from the Sunset Boardwalk. We invite you to explore these 63 acres of history, wilderness, and beauty.